Hello and welcome to Frontline Conversations, a special broadcast, and I'm your host, Gowhar Geelani. Today, we are going to discuss an important topic, the fragility of Jammu and Kashmir's mountains and environmental sensitivity. Recently, on 14th of August 2025, a cloudburst, a massive cloudburst, hit Kishtwar in the Chenab Valley. More than 70 people have already been declared dead, and hope has faded for the remaining bodies. And there was another tragedy in the Kathua region. Why are these cloudbursts happening so frequently? And what is the path ahead? So to discuss this, I have a distinguished panel of guests with me. Let me introduce. We have Mutaharra Deva, and she has been a policy consultant and she extensively writes on environmental issues. And then to my right is Mr. Athar Parvaiz, who has 20 years of experience of writing on science and environment, and his special focus is on Kashmir and the Himalayas. And then to my immediate, extreme right is Mr. Iftikhar Drabu, who understands Earth's structure, physical structure. He's a geologist and he's an engineer, has been a consultant with various agencies, and he also says that he's an aspiring farmer. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
So Ms. Mutaharra, I will start with you. You have written a recent piece. I was going through your piece, and you used a very interesting term where you said overtourism. And you talked about climate change, what needs to be done. Glaciers are melting, and there's a lot of issues like vagaries of weather. So how do you see this latest tragedy, keeping Kishtwar and Kathua in mind, and before that, what happened in Ladakh or in Pahalgam? So, given your wealth of experience, rewarding experience of writing and being a policy consultant, what is happening in Kashmir?
Gowhar Sahab, thank you very much for this invite and for a discussion on such an important topic. You see, cloudburst, Kashmir, Himalayas is a fertile ground for cloudburst. Why? Because we have two weather systems which work in Kashmir. We get moisture from WDs, western disturbances, and we get moisture from southwest monsoon. That's the Indian monsoon, which draws moisture in turn from Bay of Bengal and Arabian Sea. Now, when this moisture comes to Kashmir, moisture has a capacity to have water in it. It is a heavy cloud, a heavy wind, you can say. It goes up immediately. It pushes up, rises up quickly, touches the Himalayas, and then forms a huge cloud, the dense cloud. These clouds gather for a particular time, and then when they become heavier, the atmosphere cannot take the weight of those clouds, and then it collapses, and you what we call as a cloudburst. That's what has happened in Kishtwar and Kathua, and recently in Uttarakhand. Now, why frequency? Why so much of frequency? Because the Kashmir Himalayas are relatively young mountains and tectonically very active. The Himalayan terrain is very, very fragile. Himalayan terrain is very unstable and has loose soil. Now, what happens when a small trial of water, a cloudburst falls down, there is nothing on the ground. We have denuded the entire forest cover.
And it also triggers
yes. That's what I'm telling you. We have done huge concrete constructions. We are doing mining, lot of mining, deforestation, land use change, and what happens that the loose soil comes along with the cloudburst, and that what is called as a flash flood. It takes whatever is on its way. It takes human lives, it takes infrastructure, it takes everything along with it. And That's what we have seen, the loss of so many human lives in Kishtwar and the other places of the Himalayan region. Now, I was referring about over-tourism. What tourism means, first of all, if we talk about the Kashmir part of it, the entire Himalayas is like that. Kashmir, you see, go to Gulmarg. If you step foot on a car in Srinagar, you will not find even a piece of land up to Pahalgam, up to Gulmarg, up to Sanmarg. So much of constructions and so much of concrete buildings are coming up. You are on a seismic zone 4 and 5. How can you do it? How can you create so huge structures? God forbid.
On this, I'll stop you for a while and go to Mr. Drabu because he understands this Earth's physical structure, geology. So, Mr. Drabu, you tell me that is Kashmir's fragile ecology suitable for unplanned constructions and this much of dam projects and also this mass movement of tourism?
Thank you, Gowhar sir, for inviting me. And to answer your question, unplanned growth anywhere, it's not just Kashmir, anywhere is not acceptable. You have to plan your growth according to the terrain, to the topography, to the geology. It should be sustainable tourism or sustainable development. That's what we will call it, sustainable development. That's extremely important. And with regard to, like Madam said, we are in zone 4 and 5, very susceptible to earthquakes. In fact, literally, we have a major fault near Old Board in Lal Mandi. It's a major earthquake fault. And if it can cause a massive, more than a sort of scale 8 earthquake. And we should be very cautious. Our design should be done in such a manner that we shouldn't be making these huge, massive constructions. And also, yes, answering your question about the dams, they do induce seismicity. The weight of the dams, the water storage is resulting, that creates some kind of a seismic actions. And interestingly, one of the dams in China is slowing down the rotation of Earth by a few milliseconds. They made a huge dam which will actually, slow down the movement of Earth. So you can imagine the impact these dams have on the overall ecology, environment, and the topography of the place.
There's also this, recently in the news that China is also constructing a huge dam in the Brahmaputra.
That is precisely what they had this huge dam which was the Three Gorges. But this is the Sangpo dam which is in the Brahmaputra on a hair bend. That is the one I'm referring to.
Mr. Athar, you extensively write on environment and science, and you are always concerned about environment. So tell me, do you see any lack of preparedness as far as Jammu and Kashmir is concerned at the government level and also at the community level? What has been your experience?
Thank you, Gowhar sir, for having me. You see, there is a plethora of policy frameworks, policy initiatives which the governments have introduced both at the national level and at the regional level. When I talk of policy frameworks, there are a number of them.
Disaster is...
Yeah, there is this Disaster Management Authority, State Disaster Management Authority. There is this State Action Plan on Climate Change. There is a National Action Plan on Climate Change. There is National, Disaster Management Authority. So there is no dearth of policy initiatives and policy frameworks. But what happens is, there are a lot of guidelines, there are lots of regulations, rules and regulations. But what happens, once there is a disaster, only then the media gets, alerted and the government gets alerted. Until then, nothing, is being done. At least we have observed this. And when I was talking about this, these policy frameworks, there are, rules and regulations for both prevention as well as for management, management of disasters. But when it comes to the prevention of disasters, nothing is being done until the disaster strikes. So that is the basic thing, which is the initiative. Despite the fact that there is a lot of, that there are lots of frameworks available for the government, for the institutions, but nothing is being done until the disaster strikes. Let me give you an example. For example, we have a very recent example which happened quite which was very local. That was in Kulgam. There was a nomadic family which lost two family members because there was a weather event. There was storm. A tree fell off and which struck their tent. So that's how they lost their two family members. Now, if there was some early warning, or if not early warning, but at least some weather forecast, localized weather forecast, or the impact-based weather forecast, I think that a tragedy could have been averted. So these are the loopholes, these are the inefficiencies in our policy, not policy frameworks, but the way we enforce those frameworks, we enforce those guidelines. So that is the very basic thing which is lacking. And then when it comes to the disasters, again there is focus on event. There is dramatization of
event driven.
Yeah, event driven. There is dramatization of relief work being carried out. There is no focus on how the disasters can be prevented. Neither on the government side, nor on the media side, nor on the civil society side, nor even at the community level. So all these things, they ultimately result into something which plays out in front of our eyes.
Mr. Athar, let me allow me to go back to Madam Mutaharra. You also spoke about climate change is a reality, global warming is a reality. Kashmir has witnessed this year an unprecedented heat wave. And if we go back to Kishtwar, there were like residential structures, temples, and a bridge were like washed away. So tell us, we know the problem now, what the problem is. So what needs to be done to prevent such tragedies, and also ensure that we have sustainable tourism and not uncontrolled tourism beyond the capacity, beyond what Kashmir can hold? What can be done? What are the doables?
Gowhar Sahab, you talked about what happened in Kishtwar. First of all, I'll talk about that. We framed a state action plan on climate change, and I was the first nodal officer of the J&K state nodal officer for the climate change cell. Now, we have, in the national mission, there are 8 missions. We included 3 missions in addition to national mission. Those are tourism mission, health mission, and risk disaster management mission. Now, state action plan is doing what? It is a gap funding arrangement, you can say. You see, if there is a gap between the project and the environmental issues coming up, you can go for a gap funding. The then state has gone for one agriculture mission. I got 22.51 crores of rupees under National Adaptation Fund on Climate Change. Money is available, but we are not able to submit and frame a viable proposal. That's our problem. Secondly, what should be done? After Uttarkashi 2012, a tragedy happened, and then in Amarnath 2022, another tragedy happened. Government established many committees. Those committees made their recommendations, and one of the recommendations was to go for a carrying capacity of a particular place. Pilgrim tourism is very much there. Now, these Vaishnav Devi people, they have done something on NGT directions. They said we have to go for carrying capacity of a particular place, particularly high altitude tourism if you do, and then these pilgrim places. And allow people in small numbers. And don't allow your food stalls and other things at such a high location. What is happening?
Even the transport.
The transport, that is the carbon footprint we are creating. You see the carriage, first of all, if you trace the history, if you trace the chain of events of a truck carrying your eatables, the footprint is so huge, it creates trouble. And emissions are there. What's happening? Glacier, Glof, we are experiencing Glof in Ladakh and other places we are experiencing Glof. And that is what causes flash floods. You have to go. Now, there is a system. There are, this Athar Saab was telling, there are enough of rules and regulations. We have one system that is called EIA, Environmental Impact Assessment. Notification of 2016 is there. It says before conceiving a project, you should go for EIA. And EMP should be made. For example, EMP is Environmental Management Plan, should be framed. Then and then, because now the planning level has gone from yesteryears when we were planning in advance. Now we go for EMPs, Environmental Management Plans, which tells you where the parking is, what is to be done with the, for example, in Gulmarg, what is to be done with the
is having electric cars an option?
Electric cars is an option. For high altitude tourism, we should have that electric car. Even if electric cars are to be, but you have not to carry electric cars to such a height. The people can go for pilgrimage on foot in small numbers, come back. Then Amarnath pilgrimage had to be curtailed because of this issue only. You have the melting of the holy place.
So, Mr. Drabu, I would want your intervention because you have also written a lot about the Indus Water Treaty in the past. And now the Indian government, for example, has put this in abeyance. And there are a lot of talk about building new dams or, diverting the surplus waters. But my question to you is that, is there an ecological, lack of ecological foresight as far as Jammu and Kashmir is concerned, given the, scenario of tourism, having tourism beyond capacity, or just promoting tourism as the kind of, backbone of Kashmir's economy when horticulture is the mainstay and it does not, more than 60-70% horticulture, contributes to the GDP. So what has been your experience as far as the lack of ecological foresight is concerned?
I think this climate change and hydropowers in Kashmir has been about 125 years back. So we have been building not as much as we could potentially have built, but this environment impact assessments and all are of about 30-35 years back. They started looking at these issues. So we lack that, and it's not us, it's throughout the country. And we have seen what happened in Uttaranchal, we have seen what happened in Himachal. But we are literally at that stage where we have nearly exploited a substantial amount of, the potential that we have. We have already exploited that by way of construction of hydropower schemes. And hydropower, which actually till very recently, forgetting the impact whether on the landslides or other related issues, is not environment friendly. It produces a lot of greenhouse gases, which had not been known till very recently. Because particularly the ones, we don't have storage schemes. We have, diurnal or sort of run-of-the-mill. So every time the water level recedes and then goes up, the vegetation grows and it emits gases. So we do have a serious problem with regard to, hydropower schemes, and that needs to be sent. And now it had become mandatory to have the environment impact assessment and environment management plans for all projects before they were allowed to go for any forest clearances and other things.
So let me also put another question to you is about the infrastructure stress and how can there be science-based interventions and why aren't they happening?
That's a very, very relevant question. In fact, when Madam was talking about thinking, we should actually see what happens is there are two things to it. When we look at the hazards, they don't happen. There's a science behind it. So what we need to do is, one is what Athar Saab was talking, reactive. Something has happened and then everybody is trying to do that. But we can't prevent most of them, but we can forewarn. And for that, there's a science. So what we actually have to do is, we have to do a hazard assessment. What are the areas which are likely to have this impact? Then we can have a scientific intervention by way of sensors, by way of meters. I mean, we have been doing it in hydropower schemes. We have make huge caverns, 20 meter by 120 meter by 80 meter deep. So they have all these small installations which are connected. So they can even detect small rock mass changes, which actually trigger that this is likely to be happening. And I think if that is clubbed with what we have in the disaster management plan and all, as soon as you lay out these things and somebody monitors it, rather than waiting for the thing to happen and somebody sending a text message that we have been, you will actually know that there's a movement happening, because it doesn't happen, literally in a second. It sends some signals. So you can actually do that. So you need to do hazard assessment. You need to design your systems for that, sensors and piezometers. Pressures, they are developed in the rock mass. You can do that, and then you do a test trial, and then operate them, have a control room where they would all be doing that.
Mr. Athar, in America, for example, there are snowstorms and there are other tragedies. But as you said, there's a lot of activity as far as the local radio stations are concerned. There are radio programs, or there are text messages being sent to people so that they can have a defense mechanism against what is to come, which can't be prevented. So where do you see in your reporting experience, where are we lacking in that on that front?
Like I was mentioning, earlier also.
There's this meteorological department. They do issue some warnings from time to time. But is it so? Like, why doesn't it reach to the last person, especially living on the in remote areas?
So I was telling you about this, the early warnings. There have been, very good examples, because this, early warning system, it is a mechanism, which has a proven impact, which is it's quite efficient, and it has been established that if you have very good early warning system or good awareness, and then you follow it up with implementation. There are very good case studies. For example, you referred to the case study of US. In US they had a lot of they used to have a lot of deaths happening because of lightning. So they have almost brought that down to zero. That used to be in hundreds, a few years back. But they have brought down that to zero just because they have a robust, early warning system, and then a great awareness is among the public. And then at the government level also, the government ensures that whatever guidelines are there, they are followed, in letter and spirit.
But also like related to media, because you represent the media here. Is like, how serious are our media institutions, especially the newspapers or magazines, in weather reporting? Because the pages that are actually designed for weather or sports or environment, you see advertisements there. You don't see like a lot of weather reporting very, in a very professional manner. Or sports page also gets like diluted. Environment is not taken seriously. So what has been your newsroom experience as far as these three areas are concerned?
Yeah, I have a general feeling about the way media operates. For example, we know that the most important story in media is the follow-up story. But what we have been observing over here, or in the entire country, in the entire region, or maybe in most parts of the world, especially in South Asia, we live in a region which has some drawbacks. Traditionally, they have been there, and they still are going on. So this, the reporting, it is not a sustained reporting. For example, if there is a disaster, we saw it in 2014. There was a barrage of
referring to the floods.
Yes, 2014 floods. There was a barrage of reporting on floods. Every kind of story was there. But once the event passed, there was nothing, no follow-up, no nothing. So that's how the media actually understands these issues. The kind of I should not use this phrase, but kind of shallow understanding around such things, which has been prevailing for all these years. So that is one of the important reasons. And another important reason is also, at the official level, also at the government level, there is not any flow of information. For example, media always relies on information. Even during this event, we still
don't know how many people have been.
Absolutely, that's what
You have 70 bodies, and then the hope has faded for remaining, and you don't know how many are missing, how many injured, how many critical. So it's like
exactly
information.
That's what I'm coming to. So we still don't have an idea how many people have been killed in that disaster, got killed in that disaster, and we don't have an idea. Whether it was a cloudburst, whether it was a glacial lake outburst. Although I heard the Chief Minister Omar Abdullah saying that it was a cloudburst, but I was wondering where from he got that information, because there has to be at least a preliminary study which can tell us that it was really a cloudburst. because I mean there is a science behind these events. For example, the IMD definition for a cloudburst is that there has to be a very intense rainfall, say in an hour or so, within a radius of 100 kilometer radius. So that is the definition of a cloudburst. But we don't know who actually determined that this
because
was
in today's world, you go to Twitter, you go to Facebook,
Exactly.
and just say whatever you want to say.
Chat GPT.
Yeah, Chat GPT. Yeah. So, Ma'am Mutaharra, I before researching for this program, I studied. There was one research study which said there have been 168 instances of cloudbursts from 2010 to 2022
Yes.
in 12 years, and there have been close to 3,000 weather-related problems, vagaries of weather. So, given this background and also taking in view the climate change and global warming as a reality, irrefutable reality, we can't fight nature, and nature cannot satisfy human greed. So again, my question is, given your experience, what should we do? Because we live in a very fragile zone.
When Mr. Athar and Drabu Sahab was talking, I was just thinking that basic issue, everybody is talking, everybody is discussing things. Basic issue is we don't have a dedicated baseline data portal available on environmental parameters
That's
in
very
Jammu and
important
Kashmir.
point, Portal, yeah.
We don't have it. That we lack baseline data. That is the main issue. Number one. Number two, there is no institutional framework for this. State Action Plan on Climate Change provided a framework, but again, what I have written in that this thing, that it is environment and climate change is to be delineated from the forest for focused attention. Because if you have separate administrative arrangement for it, it can be looked into more discreetly. Number one. Number two, when data is available, you can have a central control room. That what Athar Sahab was talking. It is what US. He was also talking about the US. They have a central control room which has Doppler, which has satellite, which has forecasting, which has automated weather stations. And that gives data continuously. In case of a cloudburst or in case of a flash flood, it gives at least 1 minute, 1.5 minute earlier a warning. At least we can save lives. That can be done. Infrastructure and other thing is there, but human lives can be saved. That is one important issue that we need to have in Jammu and Kashmir. There is no institutional arrangement. We should have an institutional arrangement, first of all, who will look after this issue. It has got mingled with the forest department, but forest is part of the environment. Forest is not separate from this. That's what needs to be done. And then it is a cross-sectoral issue. It is not one issue. You require a sociologist, you require a zoologist, coordination between various factors. You require media people, you require everybody. It is a lifestyle now. You see, Gowhar Sahab, it's a lifestyle.
Just on the doables, what can be done in your concluding thoughts? We have this uncontrolled footfall. You have this glacial retreat, and you have snow melts happening, and heat wave was unprecedented. So, what will be the doables? Your concluding thoughts?
See, one of the doables, as I said, is about assessment, the hazard assessment, and have sensors and things in place so that that early warning system, what Athar Sahab was mentioning, is there. And secondly, when we talk of infrastructure, and a lot of times we say that because of the road infrastructure, these landslides have happened. If you see, because they have not been properly designed. One of the factors what happens is that people from plains tend to design roads for hills, which is a completely different science. It's a full-fledged science, rock mechanics, there's proper branches of engineering geology which address this. And if you have those kind of things, rock stabilization, that's what we call it. If you do that, then definitely it will be taken care of. Because our mountains, these Himalayas, are about 5 crore years old. where the older ones are 350 crores. So they are young mountains. They are still moving. That actually induces seismicity. That actually induces landslides. And I also would like to point out that what others have said, that it's not potentially likely to be a cloudburst, but could be this.
We have to have a proper
Because
study.
we have seen it in Dulhasti. I used to work there. We have had these instances of cloudbursts. A landslide happens. There's a dam formation. It fills up. It breaches the dam, and the whole hell breaks loose.
Mr. Athar, your concluding thoughts from the media perspective, how the gap can be filled.
I think the media needs to work on certain strategies. For example, the long-term strategy as well as the short-term strategy. Like I was mentioning, that there are frameworks available for disaster prevention. So I think the media should ask the right questions at the right time. They should dish out. They should put out the right information at the right time. That is the job of the media. When I say at the right time, in the long-term scenario, they should actually ask the right questions to the government. If there is a framework available to the government, what is being done about its implementation, in its enforcement? So those are the kinds of questions which the media needs to ask to the authorities. And also there has to be a short-term strategy also, like when the disasters do occur. So how the media should report them. I mean, there has to be a proper
Capacity
method to
training.
that. Yeah. So I think these are the two things. And one more thing which I want to emphasize on, this underutilization of early warning systems, because I have been observing. We have been witnessing that a lot of people get killed because of these, the kinds of catastrophes which recently struck in Kishtwar. So if there are, even I understand that there are some, data, insufficiencies, but at least it can be done, like at least for now, for the moment, the government can at least improve the weather forecasting, and then it can be supplemented with local presence of authorities. For example, just a few police corps and the few officials from the administration at the district level, because we have also these disaster management plans in every district. In all the 20 districts we have the disaster management plans, but interestingly, when the disasters occur, they catch us off guard, which always happen.
Okay, ma'am, Mutaharra, there is no problem in having pilgrimages because it's a spiritual activity. But do you think there needs to be a regulation? And also your concluding thoughts on the positive note, what can be done?
Regulations, definitely. Regulations should be there. And
Tourism also regulated?
Of course. Tourism. And then this, we can immediately say cars cannot be allowed into the secretariat, into the educational institutions. Let cycles be used. That can be a first thing. At least we can decrease the for carbon footprint. Number one.
Also, sir, just to I'm sorry for interrupting. You write on these issues, and there's a lot of awareness. Athar Saab keeps writing on these issues. So there is no problem as far as the awareness is concerned. So, but where is the problem?
I'll tell you. Problem is that you are a PhD scholar. I'll give an example. You are a PhD scholar, and you take a problem of America. What's happening in America? What's happening in this? Nobody is talking about the local problems. We should, the education department, the higher education department, the university should take up problems which are local to us, because there is data deficiency. We are not able to plan well. And you have to be a coherent system between the educational institutions, research organizations, and the administration. It cannot be. Our PhD theses are lying on the tables in the Iqbal library of the University of Kashmir, and then it is there. Nobody is looking into it. It should be applicable. Now the time has come that it should be applicable research. We should have data where we can apply it in our day-to-day activities, because data deficiency is creating lot of issues for us. It can be done. There is no such issue, but government has to come up with concrete suggestions in this, and then we also have to help the government in positive outcomes.
Can I add just two quick lines? So on this awareness front, I think it has become a common knowledge now. People absolutely know that there is something called climate change,
global warming,
or at least something is happening, something unusual is happening. in terms of these weather systems. Extreme weather events keep occurring at an increasing frequency. So there has been that kind of awareness, but that awareness, that knowledge needs to be deepened, and it needs to be taken to the next level. So what is that next level? Now the people need to be told that, since that these are the things which are happening in front of your eyes. So what you need to know and what you need to do in order to safeguard your lives. So that is the intervention which the government needs to make, and ensure that people don't get killed. That should be the primary concern.
Thank you, Athar Saab. On that note, we will end this discussion. And I hope what Mr. Drabu, Mutaharra ma'am, and Mr. Athar Parvaiz said, all the stakeholders, whether they are at the community level, government level, or the media level, everybody is listening and making notes, taking notes. And let's hope that these disasters, if not prevented, but the damage is minimized, and more is written and applied. Whatever suggestions they have given, the recommendations that they have offered are taken seriously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.